Want to unlock a more fulfilling sex life? Most people think it's all about techniques or tricks. But what if the secret lies in something much deeper? Welcome back to the Deep Connection Podcast.
Yeah,
I think it's easy to think that women are a total mystery,
right.
especially when it comes to the bedroom.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking women are a mystery.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, I think, just kind of throw up their hands and say, I'll never understand them.
Yeah,
But I think that's where we go wrong.
right.
It's not about women being a puzzle to solve. It's more about understanding that they operate on a different wavelength.
Exactly. Yeah, we're so used to a linear cause and effect kind of way of looking at things, and women experience the world a lot more cyclically,
Okay.
like the ebb and flow of the tides.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So like instead of getting frustrated when her mood or desires shift,
Yeah,
maybe we should recognize those natural rhythms.
absolutely. And a big part of understanding anyone's rhythms is being curious and asking questions. Instead of assuming you know what she's thinking or feeling, why not just ask?
That reminds me of something my swim coach used to tell me.
Oh, yeah.
He used to say, your perception is your reality.
Hmm.
And back then, I didn't fully grasp it.
Yeah.
But now I realize how much our individual perspectives shape our experiences.
What's so fascinating about that is that, none of us actually share the same reality.
Wow.
We each experience the world through our own unique lens, and that includes our experiences of intimacy.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of trying to force our own definition of intimacy onto someone else, we need to be more open to understanding theirs.
Exactly. And that's where we need to make a distinction between intimacy and sex.
Okay.
Two terms that are often used interchangeably but have distinct meanings.
Yeah. You always hear people say intimacy is more than just sex.
Right.
But what does that actually look like?
So sex is the physical act, whereas intimacy is about the depth of connection.
Oh.
It's about feeling seen, understood, valued. And it's about a sense of closeness and belonging that can be found in many different areas of life, not just romantic relationships.
It's interesting because studies have shown that humans can actually die without intimacy.
Yeah.
It's as essential to our well-being as food and water.
It's true.
But we often limit our understanding of intimacy to the bedroom.
Right.
We forget about all the deep connections we can have with friends, with family, with even strangers sometimes.
Yeah.
Even the intimacy that we can cultivate with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through our passions, through our purpose.
Yeah, there's actually 3 pillars of intimacy that we can nurture.
Okay.
The first is relationships with other people, and that includes everyone from close friends to casual acquaintances. The second is our relationship with ourselves,
Yep.
which involves exploring our inner world,
Okay.
our passions, and our purpose. And finally, there's our relationship with life itself.
Okay.
Nature, spirituality, or even just the contemplation of life and death.
It's like we have this whole web of connections that we can tap into.
Yeah.
And each one offers its own unique flavor of intimacy.
Precisely. And when we cultivate intimacy in all these areas, it creates a richer, more fulfilling life experience.
So how do we practically build more intimacy in our lives? Yeah. Especially if we weren't taught this stuff growing up. What are some steps that we can take?
One simple but really powerful way is to ask better questions.
Okay.
Instead of those surface level like, how are you, or what do you do?
Right.
Try asking something that invites deeper sharing, like, what's bringing you joy these days? Or what are you most passionate about?
I like that.
Yeah.
It's about moving beyond the small talk and really trying to connect with a person.
Right.
What else?
Something as basic as making eye contact can create a surprising sense of intimacy. We often underestimate the power of a genuine gaze to convey connection and understanding.
I remember when the pandemic first hit and we were all isolating. I went 2 weeks without any physical contact at all.
Oh.
It was a stark reminder of how much we crave touch, even if it's not sexual.
Absolutely. Touch is a fundamental human need.
Yeah.
And it's so crucial for building intimacy. A hug, a hand on the shoulder, even a gentle massage can instantly create a sense of closeness and connection.
So it's about incorporating those small but meaningful gestures into our daily interactions.
Exactly. And when we make an effort to cultivate intimacy in these everyday moments, it naturally spills over into our romantic relationships and even our sexual experiences.
Let's talk about how we can bring more intimacy into the bedroom.
Yeah.
What are some key things that men should know about creating a more fulfilling and connected experience for their partner.
One crucial thing is to understand that women often need to feel safe and relaxed to fully open up sexually.
Hmm.
Creating that sense of safety and comfort is paramount.
So it's not just about setting the mood with candles and music.
Right.
It's about creating an emotional space where she feels completely at ease.
Exactly. And that often involves slowing things down, resisting that urge to rush towards that peak of arousal.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So moving away from that typical build-up and release pattern,
Yes.
that's so common in our culture.
Because when we slow down, we allow ourselves to really savor the experience,
Okay.
to feel more deeply, and to connect on a more profound level.
This makes me think about foreplay
Yeah.
and how we can make it more meaningful and enjoyable for both partners.
This is where it gets really interesting. A lot of people think of foreplay as something that happens right before sex.
Right.
But for women, foreplay can begin hours, even a day, before any physical intimacy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That completely reframes the whole concept.
So it's not just about the physical touch, it's about creating a sense of anticipation and desire throughout the day.
Okay.
Think about it like planting seeds throughout the day,
Mhm.
a flirty text message, a thoughtful gesture, even just setting the scene for a romantic evening.
Yeah.
All these things can build anticipation and desire.
So instead of flipping a switch when it's time for sex,
Right.
we're creating a continuous flow
Yeah.
of connection and desire.
Precisely. And if you find yourself forgetting to do those little things,
Mm.
don't be afraid to set a reminder on your phone.
Yeah.
There's no shame in using technology to help you be more present and intentional in your relationship.
It sounds like effort is really key here.
Absolutely.
If you're not willing to put in the effort, then maybe you should reconsider why you're in the relationship in the first place.
I couldn't agree more. Love is an action, not
Mm.
just a feeling.
Yeah.
And showing up for your partner, even in small ways, can make a world of difference.
But let's be realistic.
Yeah.
Couples often struggle to find the time or energy for intimacy, especially with busy schedules, kids, life getting in the way.
Yeah.
How can they get back on track?
One strategy that can be surprisingly helpful is scheduling sex.
Wait, really? Scheduling sex? I feel like that takes all the spontaneity and romance out of it.
I understand the resistance, but think about it this way.
Okay.
When you were first dating, you scheduled dates, right?
Yeah.
And you probably knew that sex might be a possibility on those dates.
That's true.
And there was a certain excitement that came with anticipating those dates.
Yeah, for sure.
So scheduling creates anticipation and desire.
Hmm.
It also takes the pressure off of having to be in the mood spontaneously,
Okay.
which can be especially helpful for women who often need more time to transition into a sexual space.
So instead of waiting for the perfect moment to magically appear,
Right.
we create that moment intentionally.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
But what about those situations where one partner just isn't as interested in sex as the other? What then?
That's a really common issue, and it's important to remember that low libido is usually a symptom of something else going on.
Okay.
In most cases, the partner with the lower desire is feeling disconnected or unappreciated or like their needs aren't being met.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about forcing them to have sex, it's about addressing the root cause of the problem. Instead of pressuring them for sex, focus on making them feel loved, admired, and cherished.
Good.
Listen to their concerns, validate their feelings, and make a genuine effort to meet their needs.
So it's about rebuilding that foundation
Exactly.
of trust and connection.
And when that foundation is strong desire, naturally returns.
This has been so insightful, but before we wrap up,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners,
Mm.
especially the men who are tuning in today?
Yes. There's one more crucial point that I want to emphasize.
Okay.
Our society tends to have a very narrow definition of sexuality, especially for men.
Okay.
But the truth is, your sexuality is so much more than what you've been told.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Men are capable of experiencing pleasure in ways that go far beyond the typical climax and release model.
Okay.
You can have full-body orgasms, energy orgasms, waves of ecstatic sensation that don't even involve your genitals.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like we've been limiting ourselves without even realizing it.
Yeah.
It's like we've been given this map to pleasure, but we've only been exploring one tiny corner of it.
Exactly. So expand your understanding of what sexuality can be and connect with your emotions and your energy and your body in new ways.
Don't be afraid to go beyond those societal norms and discover the full spectrum of your sexual potential.
Yes. And remember, sexuality isn't confined to the bedroom. It's a foundational energy that can permeate every aspect of your life, like how you move through the world, how you relate to others, how you connect with yourself.
Wow. That's a really powerful way to look at it. You mentioned earlier that scheduling sex can actually be beneficial for couples, even if it sounds kind of unromantic at first. Can
Right.
you elaborate on that?
Sure, I know it might seem counterintuitive, but scheduling a sexy time can be incredibly helpful, especially for couples who are struggling to find the time or energy for intimacy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people worry that scheduling will make sex feel like a chore
Hmm.
or an obligation rather than something spontaneous and fun.
Yeah, I understand that concern. But here's the thing. Scheduling doesn't mean you have to follow a rigid script or timetable.
Okay.
It's more about creating a container, a dedicated space for intimacy and connection.
So it's like blocking out time in your calendar for date night, but instead of going to dinner and a movie,
Yuck.
you're prioritizing intimacy.
And just like with a date night, scheduling can actually create anticipation and excitement.
Hmm.
You have this special time set aside for each other, and you can start looking forward to it throughout the day.
That makes sense. It takes the pressure off of having to be in the mood spontaneously and allows you to both mentally and emotionally prepare for intimacy.
Right. It also ensures that intimacy doesn't get pushed to the bottom of the to-do list, which can easily happen when life gets busy.
Okay, I'm starting to see the benefits. But what if one partner is really enthusiastic about scheduling sexy time and the other is more hesitant? How do you navigate that?
Communication is key. If one partner is resistant, it's important to understand why. Are they afraid of feeling pressured? Do they have negative associations with scheduling?
Yeah.
Once you understand their concerns, you can address them with compassion and understanding.
So instead of saying we need to schedule sex,
Right?
it's more about having an open and honest conversation about your needs and desires.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, compromise is crucial. Maybe you start by scheduling a shorter block of time or focusing on non-sexual intimacy, like cuddling or massage. The goal is to find a rhythm that works for both of you.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where you're both feeling comfortable and connected.
Precisely. Now, we've talked a lot about cultivating intimacy in romantic relationships, but I think it's important to remember that intimacy is a much broader concept.
Okay.
We can experience intimacy in many different areas of our lives, not just with romantic partners.
That's such an important point. We often get so caught up in the romantic aspect of intimacy
Right.
that we neglect all the other meaningful connections in our lives.
And those connections are so vital to our well-being. Our friendships, our family relationships, and even our connections with colleagues and strangers can enrich our lives in profound ways.
Yeah, it's like we have this whole network of relationships
Yeah,
that can nourish us and provide a sense of belonging.
exactly. And just like with romantic relationships, we need to nurture those connections. It's about making time for the people we care about, listening with empathy, and showing up for each other in times of need.
I think it's easy to take those relationships for granted, especially when we're busy or focused on other things.
It's true. But when we invest in our relationships, they become a source of strength and support that can help us navigate life's challenges.
So it's about recognizing the value of all our connections and making a conscious effort to cultivate them.
Exactly. And when we do that, we create a richer, more meaningful life experience.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I'm
Yeah.
already starting to think about intimacy in a whole new way.
I'm so glad to hear that. It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you and your listeners.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on one more topic that I think a lot of men struggle with.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the importance of understanding women and meeting their needs. But what about men's needs? How do we communicate our own desires and preferences without feeling like we're being selfish or demanding?
That's a great question, and it's something I hear a lot from men. I think the key is to remember that your needs are valid and it's okay to express them.
Okay.
However, it's important to do so in a way that's respectful and considerate of your partner's feelings.
So it's not about making demands or issuing ultimatums.
Right.
It's about having an open and honest conversation about what you're longing for.
Exactly. And I think it's helpful to frame it in terms of I feel statements
Yeah.
rather than you should statements. For
Yeah.
example, instead of saying you never initiate sex,
Yeah.
you could say, I feel really loved and desired when you make the first move sometimes.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
It takes the blame and accusation out of the equation and focuses on how your partner's actions make you feel.
Right. And it also opens up a space for your partner to share their own feelings and perspectives.
So it's about creating a dialogue
Yeah.
where you both feel heard and understood.
Exactly. And that's the foundation of any healthy relationship.
We've covered so much ground today, from understanding women's cycles to scheduling sex to expanding our definition of sexuality.
Hmm.
Is there any one piece of advice that you'd like to leave our listeners with? Something they could take away and start applying in their lives today?
I think the most important thing is to remember that intimacy is a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
There's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to discover about yourself and your partner.
So it's about embracing the process and being open to growth and change.
Exactly. And it's about having fun. Intimacy should be pleasurable and enjoyable, not a chore or a source of stress.
I love that. It's about rediscovering that sense of playfulness and adventure that we
Mm.
often lose as we get older.
Precisely. And when we approach intimacy with that spirit of curiosity and excitement, it can be incredibly rewarding.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gained so much valuable knowledge about intimacy and relationships.
It's been my pleasure sharing these insights with you and your listeners.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? Any parting words of wisdom?
Yes. I would encourage everyone to cultivate a sense of gratitude for the connections in their lives.
Mm,
Take a moment to appreciate the people who love and support you and make an effort to show them how much they mean to you.
that's beautiful advice.
Mm,
It's so easy to get caught up in the busyness of life that we forget to express our gratitude for the people who make our lives richer and more fulfilling.
exactly. And when we take the time to acknowledge and appreciate those connections, it deepens our sense of intimacy and belonging.
This has been a truly transformative conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom with our listeners.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all of you listening out there, thank you for tuning in to the Deep Connection podcast. We're so grateful for your support. As we wrap up this episode, I keep thinking about how much we've redefined intimacy.
Hmm.
It's not just about romantic love or even physical touch.
Right.
It's about so much more.
It's about those moments of deep connection that can happen anywhere, anytime with anyone.
Yeah.
It's about feeling seen and understood, about sharing a piece of yourself with another human being.
I think we often limit ourselves by thinking that intimacy can only happen in certain contexts,
Right.
like a romantic date or a special occasion.
Yeah.
But you're saying it's much more expansive than that.
Exactly. It's about being present and open to connection in all areas of our lives.
Hmm.
It's about having those vulnerable conversations with our friends, sharing a laugh with a stranger, or even just taking the time to truly listen to someone's story.
It's like we're surrounded by opportunities for intimacy
Yeah.
if we just open our eyes and hearts to them.
Precisely. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about intimacy.
Mm.
It's not something we have to search for. It's something we can cultivate in every moment.
That's such a powerful reminder.
Mm.
We have so much power to create intimacy in our lives, whether it's through small everyday gestures or more intentional acts of connection.
And when we do that, we not only enrich our own lives, but we also create a ripple effect that touches everyone around us.
I love that image of a ripple effect.
Yeah.
It reminds us that intimacy is contagious, and it has the power to transform not just our individual relationships, but our communities and even the world.
Exactly. And I think that's what we're all ultimately longing for, isn't it?
Mhm.
To feel connected, to feel loved, to feel like we belong.
This has been such a profound conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of intimacy and its power to transform our lives.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure sharing these insights.
And to all of our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of intimacy. We hope you found this conversation as inspiring and enlightening as we have. If you found this interesting, subscribe for more